If you didn't know already, everything that has happened in this series so far, every major plot point like Yuji eating Sukuna's finger, down to Goodwill, then Shibuya, and the Culling Games arc, has all been according to Kenjaku's plan. All of his plans have really become actuality. He was able to hire a group of cursed spirits, that being the disaster curses, to work for him the entire show, and he stayed hidden from everyone the entire series. Nobody knew that he even was alive within Geto's body, and he had the cursed spirits do his bidding. And he has actually been dedicated to this plan for over 1,000 years. We know that for the past 1,000 years, he has been making pacts with people in order to make the Culling Games happen in the future. We know this because we saw a flashback with Kashimo, where Kashimo just got done beating up a bunch of sorcerers and he was talking to Kenjaku. And Kashimo basically asked Kenjaku who is the strongest sorcerer you know, to which Kenjaku replies Sukuna, and my answer won't change. And then Kashimo said, then I'll listen to what you have to say, this way I can fight Sukuna. And what he meant by that was the Culling Games. Kenjaku for the past 1,000 years has been hiring people to be a part of the Culling Games. We know that Kenjaku made a pact with Sukuna over 1,000 years ago so that Sukuna could come back and be the Eye of the Storm in the Culling Games today. And we know that in the past, Kenjaku has actually lost to 2 Six Eyes users. You know, it seems like these Six Eyes users have always been too strong and get in the way of his plans. And we even know that he killed a baby that was born with the Six Eyes at one point. So him making these binding vows with the Culling Game sorcerers was just sort of a way for him to just lay low, build up these binding vows, then all at once in the future have the Culling Game start, which is what he did present day. He made all of these vows so that he all brought it together at one point, that one point being the Culling Games. We know that he was even so dedicated to his goal that he actually became Yuji's mom. I know it sounds weird, but when Yuji was born into this world, the person within his mother's body was Kenjaku. And it's sort of weird that Yuji's dad knew that Yuji's mother was dead and it was Kenjaku inside. It's sort of weird, but you get this scene where Yuji's grandfather, remember the grandpa from episode 1? You get this scene where Yuji's grandpa is telling Yuji's father, like, you know that Aori is dead, so why do you keep this woman around? This is not Aori. So it's sort of weird that Yuji's dad knows that he just made a baby with a dead woman. It's sort of like he knows Kenjaku is inside Yuji, but he doesn't care. But either way, Kenjaku probably had birth to Yuji, probably to see how strong Yuji would come out, because we know that in the past, over 150 years ago, Kenjaku actually did experiments with a different woman in order to make Choso and his brothers. And he did this in order to see how strong these children would become. So it makes sense that Kenjaku would sort of be doing the same thing here with Yuji. Maybe that's why he had Yuji become Sukuna's vessel, because he wanted a strong vessel for Sukuna in order to bring back the Heian Age. And then it sort of goes back to how Kenjaku did everything in current day while staying hidden. He actually hired the group known as the Disaster Curses, which consist of Mahito, Dagon, Hanami, and Jogo. And these curses have always stayed back depending on where we are in the series. So Jogo was the first person to come out and fight against Gojo back in chapter 14 and 15. And Jogo asked Kenjaku beforehand, how strong do you think I am in terms of Sukuna fingers? Kenjaku told him 8 or 9. That sort of got Jogo's head hyped up. He thought he could go beat Gojo. So Jogo goes to fight Gojo and just gets completely stomped. That was our introduction to Jogo, just a hothead who was overconfident and loses to the strongest in the series. And then we see Mahito come around, and Mahito is a bit different. Even though he lost to Nanami in that sewer, we saw that Mahito had potential to grow really strong. And this shows by what Nanami said after he got done fighting Mahito. He said, it doesn't seem like much time has passed since he appeared. He's greedily enjoying his growth. The spirit Gojo fought could even use domain expansion. If the child spirit survived, it's only a matter of time before it reaches that point. We can expect an unfathomable body account. If we're not quick in exercising him, we might be past the point of no return. So it's not like Kenjaku hired some bozos, He has Jogo, who actually in his own right is pretty strong. He just, had to fight up against Gojo. But he also does have Mahito, who grows throughout the series. So there's this factor of an enemy who's not just one set strength, but we have this enemy in Mahito that is constantly growing, so he is a real threat. And then we got introduced to Hanami, who came around in Goodwill. And we saw Yuji and Todo basically begin to jump Hanami. And it was looking like Hanami was getting beat down, rightfully Hanami was getting beat down. But we see that Hanami was actually able to grow a bit in the fight. You know, he has his flashback when he's talking to Mahito. Mahito tells Hanami to have fun. And we see that Hanami is actually about to open a domain expansion before Gojo pulls up. We don't know what Hanami's domain is or, you know, what would have happened. But it just goes to show that all of these spirits that Kenjaku has hired are actual threats. Of course, they're not threats to somebody like Gojo, for example, or like Yuki, for example, you know, or Yuta. You know, all of them should be able to beat all of the disaster curses pretty easily. But they are threats enough to get all of the weaker people out of the way. And even average sorcerers, it really would take somebody of a higher grade to beat the disaster curses, which was Kenjaku's goal from the beginning. You know, we really didn't get to see Dagon fight until Shibuya. You know, Dagon actually was very strong, especially with his domain. Dagon was actually able to beat now Obito, Nanami, and Maki. But, you know, Toji pulled up, exercised Dagon, and got him out of the way. That was really the story of the disaster curses. And we saw that Mahito actually loses to Yuji in Shibuya. And when Mahito loses, Kenjaku actually absorbs Mahito and takes his abilities for himself. And Kenjaku even says here that he wished that Jogo grew as well. It sort of gives off the vibe that Kenjaku was actually going to absorb these disaster curses when they got done doing his bidding. This because, you know, he did it to Mahito, and he also says that he wished he did it to Jogo as well. So it sort of goes to show that even though they were on Kenjaku's side, Kenjaku did not care. He was just using them for their abilities at the time so he could stay hidden in the shadows. But after their duties are done, he was just gonna backstab them and absorb them anyway. You can't really trust Kenjaku, and the curses should have known this because, you know, they hate humans and what humans stand for. And one of humans' main qualities is trust, and they trusted Kenjaku, and you saw what happened to them. You know, it was super important that Kenjaku actually did this by staying in the shadows. And we sort of knew, before we even knew who Suguru Geto was, we sort of knew that there was something up with his body, because Kenjaku basically said he can't let anybody see him. So, you know, it was important that he gained these disaster curses, you know, even though he ended up using them in the end, that he gained this sort of miniature army to go do his bidding for him. And we know that the problem wasn't really strength for Kenjaku, because, you know, especially with the recent chapters, fighting against Choso and Yuki, we know Kenjaku is extremely strong, and he has the strong body of Suguru Geto anyways. Now yes, Kenjaku is stronger than Geto, but just having this body of Geto's is amazing because he was a special grade. You know, the only other special grades being Yuta, Yuki, and Gojo, so those would be his only threats. But just having this base form, like this base body, you could say, of Geto's is amazing on its own. We know that now he didn't really need the disaster curses for strength purposes. You know, Kenjaku could have went and fought all of those people on his own. You know, Kenjaku could have went and fought Yuji and Todo during Goodwill. Kenjaku could have went and fought all of the people in Shibuya, and Kenjaku could have done the fights in the Culling games as well. It's just that those things wouldn't have gone according to his plan. He would have revealed himself, and he would have had to either hurry up his plan or abandon it completely. Because revealing himself, having the body of Suguru Geto, would alarm everyone, and his cover would basically be blown. He would not have a chance to catch Gojo off guard, and that would actually be the end. So that really was the purpose of the disaster curses. Not really strength, but more so just a cover for him. And he was actually able to orchestrate the entirety of Shibuya through this manner. You know that he used the disaster curses in order to fight the main cast to keep them away from Gojo, because he wanted to isolate Gojo, which we saw when Gojo came down onto the train tracks. He had Hanami use roots to cover up the entrance and exits. And then as soon as Gojo got caught off guard, Kenjaku came around the corner, said, "Hey Gojo." And of course, when Gojo looks back, he sees his friend from high school, and he gets frozen and then sealed. Everything up to this point had gone basically perfect. Yes, Hanami died. Yes, Dagon died to Toji right after. You know, yes, Jogo and Mahito do end up dying, but everything up to this point was perfect. He has successfully lured Gojo down onto the train tracks and sealed him. And it is sort of impressive that, you know, he was able to capture somebody known as the strongest. Yes, I do believe he only was able to do it because of this body of Suguru Geto's. It doesn't even matter about the strength of Suguru Geto in that moment. It only matters about Suguru Geto being Suguru Geto in that moment. The fact that he was appearing as Geto is what stunned Gojo. So yeah, you know, it is impressive that Kenjaku was able to pull it off, but at the same time, just him appearing as Gojo's friend was enough to stun Gojo, so you can take that as you will. And another thing is that we know that Kenjaku was really strong before he even got in Geto's body. And the reason I'm saying this is that Tengen actually says that Kenjaku is one of the few people in the world who can match him in barrier usage. As we know, domains are barriers, things like simple domains. All of these things are barrier techniques. And the fact that Kenjaku is one of the few people in the world who can match Tengen goes to show a lot. And that is probably why, Kenjaku's domain was able to overwhelm Yuki's simple domain, because it was actually stripping away Yuki's simple domain. We'd never seen anything like that before. And it makes sense why Tengen actually told Yuki to not expand her own domain. Not because he wasn't confident in that she would win the domain clash, but, Tengen was basically alluding towards, you shouldn't do this anyways because you'd probably lose. So let's just go with my plan instead of trying to dismantle Kenjaku's domain together. But of course, it didn't work because Kenjaku actually has a domain that has no outer shell. Exactly like Sukuna's domain that we saw get displayed during Shibuya when Sukuna was fighting against Maharaga. There is no shell to Sukuna's domain, and there also is no shell to Kenjaku's. So there is no outer shell to dismantle, and that's why Yuki and Tengen failed. We saw in the fight with Choso, Choso was actually getting beat up badly the entire time. Even when Choso went into this three brothers form, we already knew that Kenjaku was supposed to be of this level of strength, but just seeing him toy with Choso like that was, pretty crazy. And then when Yuki came around the corner, he was actually able to dodge and react to all of Yuki's attacks. Now, I'm not talking about the initial attack, when Yuki ran up on him and broke his arms, but the reason Kenjaku got so messed up by that attack is because he didn't know what Yuki's technique was and was basically trying to figure out what she could do. You could tell that after Kenjaku found out what Yuki could do, he just opened up a domain, basically hindered her by mangling her arm and hurting her, laying her out to the ground. And then we saw that after that happened, Kenjaku basically did react to every attack thereafter. Even when Choso tried to come in, Kenjaku was basically able to maneuver around every attack and maybe got hit once or twice, but that's it. And it even goes to show that by the end of this, even with Tengen, Choso, and a special grade in Yuki all fighting against him at once, Kenjaku was able to beat all of them and capture Tengen in the end. He had finally achieved the reason he went there, which was capturing Tengen in order to merge Tengen with Japan for the cursed energy reasons. So it is very impressive that Kenjaku was able to beat a special grade along with Tengen and Choso all at the same time. And after this, we know that Kenjaku made the bath for Sukuna in the recent chapters, so where Sukuna can come back and basically be the eye of the storm. We sort of got this revealed to us back when Choso was fighting Kenjaku. Choso basically asked Kenjaku, what was your plan for Yuji? To which Kenjaku said, I don't really have a plan for Yuji. You could say that his plan is just being the eye of the storm for the new Heian Age. But, spoiler alert, we know that it is no longer Yuji being the eye of the storm. It's basically Megami now. So Megami is the host for Sukuna, and Kenjaku helped make this bath for Sukuna to help Sukuna submerge Megami so he could become the eye of the storm in the new Heian Age. Everything has gone Kenjaku's way so far. But there is one thing that Kenjaku did not know about. It is one thing that Tengen passed on before he passed, and that one thing is the back of the prison realm. We know that the main cast still has the back of the prison realm, and they can use this to free Gojo. Now Kenjaku does not know this, and Tengen said that Kenjaku didn't know this back when he gave it to the main cast, that being Maki and Yuta, the others. So we know that the back of the prison realm is still in their possession, and they can go free Gojo. Now what will happen when they actually go free Gojo? Who knows? I did make a video on that. If you go to my channel, my most recent video was me talking about Gojo coming back because, Kenjaku did not account for the back of the prison realm. But we'll see how everything turns out. But basically, throughout the entirety of Jujutsu Kaisen, Kenjaku manipulated everybody. He used the disaster curses, got Sukuna on his side, manipulated the Goodwill arc, the Shibuya arc, and the Culling Games arc, and all of the Culling Games sorcerers. And now, current day, he beat Choso, Yuki, and Tengen. And he now has Sukuna as the eye of the storm. Kenjaku has been the master manipulator behind the entire series. And that's all I have in today's video. Thank you for watching and making it to the end. And if you enjoyed JJK content, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as I post videos every couple days on different topics you guys give me, and I feel I come up with on my own. Thank you for watching. See you next time.